fellas. Happy to be back for another episode of the Blind Pig Podcast, courtesy of BGObsession.com, free agency edition, as we're going to break down a little bit of the defensive side of the ball and some maybe free agent targets. But before we get going, as always, we are on all major social media platforms, all major audio podcasting platforms, and of course at the mothership, BGObsession.com. Totally free. Come by, join the message board, get in on conversation, and have some fun. We enjoy all new members, all kinds of contests, all kinds of fun stuff. Do what?
Come argue with us. We are in full-blown free agency arguing.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Before we get into the defensive, some of the defensive options we've got, I would like to hear you guys' reaction. I believe it was since the last podcast we did release Tyler Biotish. I'm curious what you guys' initial thought of that. I think I know how John feels about it.
Well, I agree with you, Derek, that it'll probably be okay. It's not like our front office is not full of idiots. I don't believe that I think Adam Peters is a smart guy. It's a little weird to fire a guy or release a guy that's been your starter for 2 seasons. And really, we haven't heard anything but good things. I mean, at least that he's solid. And I think that's what we've seen is that he's been solid. It's a little concerning that they would do that. Let him walk. First of all, keep him as a backup. Trade him. Now, maybe they tried to trade him and they had no takers. But just letting him go without a clear replacement that's on the actual roster. And I know people are talking about Allegretti, who got extended. But I don't really think that's the plan. I could be wrong, but I don't think that's probably the plan. So anyway, I just have some reservations about, and they may be doing him a solid, by letting him get out there and try to find a starting job somewhere else. But I'm kind of like, you know what? Screw that. I mean, I love the guy, but we want our football team to be solid. I think that takes priority over doing players favors. So I don't know what to make of it, to be honest with you. I'm not crazy about how it seems to have gone down, but who knows? We may not really know enough to make a judgment.
I don't think the Allegretti move was to move money around. And I think that was the whole determining factor behind that was just to move the money around. He was a $7.2 million cap hit in 26, and they've changed that now, and he's under contract for another year. So I don't think that's some sort of an investment in Allegretti as the starting center going for. I think there's another move to be made at center, and I think they're fully planning on doing it. Just my opinion. Paul, you're the resident offensive line lover. What's your feeling, brother?
Yeah, I was quite surprised. When you think back to Adam Peters' first off seasons here, I think, if I remember correctly, Tyler Biotish was one of his first acquisitions in free agency. I just found it surprising from the standpoint of, we took arguably our strongest unit and now created a hole on that unit. And granted, yes, there probably is a plan to replace him. But given the amount of needs and the amount of holes that are elsewhere on this roster, I just found that very, very surprising that, hey, now we have a center to add to the list to fix, right? So from that standpoint, I was quite shocked.
What you got, Bob? Any feelings about Biotish, or what are you thinking?
I was surprised, and then I watched Kimes' podcast with Nikki Javala, and both of them seemed to indicate that maybe he didn't grade out as high this last year as perhaps a lot of us thought he did. Granted, both of them seemed a little surprised that he let go, although Keim thinks it's a pure cash move. You know, it's not so much about the cap, it's about the fact that he was due $8 million in actual cash, and cutting him solves that problem. But both of them seem to think that there were upgrades to be had, and that's kind of, you know, where it was going, and that maybe fans thought more of him than people that really understand great offensive line play did. I don't know. I mean, I thought he was a strength, although Allegretti didn't do a bad job when he stepped in either. You know, the only other thing I thought of is from a play standpoint, they want to play more from under center. And maybe they view Biotic as more of a shotgun center. I don't know.
Well, we'll find out, right?
We will.
Yep. A couple other little notes. I don't know if you guys saw it. The team thought necessary to announce that they've re-signed Shai Tuttle back on a one-year extension. Kind of interesting that it was worded the way that it was, but I get it. But the bigger move, Dietrich Wise, I think that's kind of a move we all expected and kind of hoped that Wise could come back. He is a little older, 31 and a half right now, if I'm not mistaken. But he made some plays when he was on the field before he got hurt. He is coming off off an injury, which is concerning, but I think it's a good move to bring Wise back as a depth end piece. And as we're going to talk about edge rushers and some other position groups tonight. So, offensive options on free agency. This week we're going to talk defensive. I guess let's start from the back and move forward. John, you had safety, correct?
Yes.
What you got for safeties?
Well, you know, that's one of the few positions where I think all of our current safeties are under contract in 2026. Like Quan Martin, Will Harris, Jeremy Reeves, Tyler Owens. I think everyone is at least through this year. So, you know, we could just go with what we got, but I don't think the safeties looked particularly well. Quan Martin, who had looked good the previous year, you know, had kind of a breakout year, looked not very good in 2025. So I think we could definitely upgrade. This is a very strong safety class in free agency. And then there were two other things that just popped in my head before I get to the guys that I looked at. I guess one question would be, are they targeting Caleb Downs in the draft? You know, because that could change the equation. And then the other thing is Durante Jones supposedly likes to do a lot of 3 safety sets. So that could make it a bigger priority, because I don't think we have 3 safeties that we want to put out there right now all at the same time. I'd be a little nervous about that. But anyway, I kind of looked at, again, it's a strong safety class. I looked at, just like I did last week, I only looked at guys that were like 26, 27 in that age range, because I just don't want any more 30-year-olds. There are a couple good 30-year-olds out there, but you know, I'm just going to rattle off some of the guys that are available. Brian Cook from the Chiefs, Ardarius Washington, Cam Curl, Jalen Hawkins, Elohai Gilman, Andre Sisco, Jaquan Brisker, Jalen Thompson, Julian Blackman, Reed Blankenship, the Eagles safety, Kobe Bryant and Kevin Byard, and there's a lot more. There's really a lot of quality safeties. The guys, my number one guy is probably everyone's number one guy, which would be Brian Cook, 26 years old, you know, drafted by the Chiefs in 2022 in the second round. He's got good size, 6'1", 206. He's a really good tackler. He's got really good closing speed. He's one of those guys that loves to make the highlight hit. He's very confident, but he's also versatile, and he can do it all. He can cover. He can stop the run. In 2025, he had 85 tackles. 50 of those were solos, 6 pass breakups. That was 4th highest in the NFL last year. and he played 83% of the snaps. So he plays a lot. He plays well. Hasn't missed a game in 2 seasons, and he had the best year of his career last year. So PFF has him rated as a top 5 safety in the NFL with an 83.5 grade, and he would be a huge addition to that defense. So I don't know if we want to pay that kind of money for a safety or not. And again, it could depend on whether they think Downs is going to be there at 7. Probably not. But so that's my number 1 dream guy. The second guy I looked at, or my second favorite guy, is Kobe Bryant. He played with the Seahawks. He's 27. He was a 4th rounder. So he's a little bit of an overachiever, about the same size. And he's a really good run stopper. He makes big plays. In 2025, he had 66 tackles, 39 solo, a forced fumble, 4 interceptions, and 7 passes broken up. He's very good in pass coverage, and he was a big part of the Seahawks defense. He switched from cornerback to safety, which I always like that, because if a guy started out as a cornerback, he may not have had the skills at the NFL level, but he understands how to play the pass and has some of those ball skills. So I like that about him. So he would be my second cheaper, probably more realistic choice. And coming from the Seahawks, he's well coached. He knows what he's doing at that position. The third one is a guy that we talked about drafting a couple years ago. That's Jaquan Brisker. I don't know if you remember that, Derek. He was one of our draft love childs way back in the day. I think it was 2022.
It was Andre Cisco, another name you pointed out, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. He's 27. He's got good size again, 6'1", 204. He had 93 tackles last season, 52 solo, a sack, an interception, and 8 pass breakups. Versatile, can also play the run of the pass. The knock on him, he is more of a stuff the box kind of a guy. I mean, he kind of looks like that plug the middle kind of a guy, but he does have some coverage skills. He had some concussion issues in 2024, I think, but he played every game in 2025. I normally wouldn't, I'd kind of shy away from somebody that had a concussion history, but he didn't have a single problem last year, and he had a great year. They also use him to blitz a lot. The Bears did. So I really like him. He's very physical, and he's just one of those guys that elevates the guys around him. The fourth guy on my list is Cam Curl. And I probably don't need to say a lot about Cam Curl, but I never understood why we let Cam Curl go personally. He's been with the Rams, who always are smarter than we are, it seems like. So he's been with the Rams for a few years. He's an overachiever. He's always been an overachiever. He was a 7th rounder. We drafted him in the 7th round, so good for us back in 2020. So he's a little bit longer in the tooth than these other guys. He's still young, 27, but he's got a few more seasons than the other guys I talked about. In 2025, he had 122 tackles, 79 solo, 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and 5 pass breakups. He made I don't know if you guys watched that Bears game when they beat the Rams, but he had the he made the interception at the end of the game. That I said that the Bears beat the Rams. The Rams beat the Bears, obviously, but he made the interception that set up the winning field goal in that playoff game. And he can play strong or free safety. So I really like Cam Curl, and I would have no problem bringing him back. That's what I got. And there's a lot of other guys. A couple guys I didn't mention. Darius Washington is another really, really good young safety, but he tore his Achilles. He was out last year, and I've just seen too many guys tear their Achilles, come back, and tear their Achilles again. I've seen it too many times to be comfortable with that. And then the other guy I didn't talk about is Reed Blankenship, and that's just because he's an Eagle. I don't want any Eagles on our team. And he had a really kind of shaky 2025. Pretty good safety, but he didn't look good last season, so I'm going to shy away from him. I don't know if you guys got any comments on him.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, I think safety is going to be one of those interesting positions that we might not see as a need, but there's an opportunity that could change the dynamic. And I wonder if they don't go into free agency And if they see a guy and grab a guy, if Caleb Downs, it's not that they're thinking about Caleb Downs being available, that they just deem him that unnecessary, and it allows them to either trade out of that spot if somebody's in love with Downs and he falls to 7, or take a different player and continue to add elsewhere.
I guess the only thing I would say about that, not that he just has a kind of a little bit of a Sean Taylor vibe to him. To me, Caleb Downs does, just the way he can make things happen, and he's all over the place. So I think it'd be really hard to pass on him, but that's just me.
You said if he's there, John, and the way things are beginning to look, at least amongst the people who are paid to know these kind of things or supposedly know these kind of things, is that the edge guys are probably going to be gone by the time they get to us. I mean, I'm seeing the top 3 edge guys going 2, 3, 4 right now in most mock drafts out there. I think and Styles has moved way up the list. He could end up in New York. I've seen a lot of people talk about that. I think there's a very real chance Downs is on the board when we pick at 7. And if we're real about that whole best player available thing, this kid looks like he's an instant upgrade over almost anybody in the league. And the thing that really strikes me is the fact that everybody talks about his football IQ, that he's a very cerebral player. Yes, he's physically gifted, but he just sees things and does things. There's an instinct there. And I don't know if we do much in safety. Seems to be one of those places that most of the NFL lets the market set itself, and there isn't a rush to sign a lot of safeties day 1, day 2, day 3 is what I'm saying. So it's entirely possible that safety becomes one of those things that almost gets taken care of either right on top of the draft after things begin to really, settle out and we have a better idea maybe, or maybe not even until after the draft if they don't have a shot at Downs or they decide to trade out or, whatever happens there. I wouldn't mind seeing Cam Curl come back. I have a hard time believing that these guys will bring him back. And it's entirely possible that they just decide to roll with what they've got. I don't know. We'll see.
That was my Carson Wentz pick for the night, Bob. I'm trying to take a little pressure off you.
Yeah, I've been waiting for the backlash on the board, and I haven't seen it yet. So.
They're too busy arguing in other threads.
They are. Yeah.
All right, boys. Let's go ahead and go to the outside of the secondary. Paul, I believe you had corners, correct?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I had cornerback, and I guess I'll start and I'll preface by saying that, it's obviously important that we add a boundary cornerback because we obviously need someone on the outside that, we can isolate one-on-one with receivers and whatnot. But ultimately, I think long-term for our team, consistency in our defensive secondary long-term is going to depend on how we develop Trey Amos and Mike Sainristil. Both of these guys have proven that they can play in this league and be very effective. Granted, at the same time, they've, had their share of struggles naturally as young players in the league. Let's face it, these guys are both second rounders, and we need these guys to be core players for our franchise for years to come. And I would really like that we can extend these guys down the road on long-term contracts. It's something that we've missed on time and time again with our second rounders. I feel like over the years, like how many of them have we signed in recent memory to second contracts, right? Like these are second round players. We need these guys to be part of our foundation for years to come. So ultimately, long-term health of this defensive secondary, I think, is largely going to be dependent on how these two players pan out. That being said, we do need some outside corners, and I tried to, identify a higher end player, a mid-tier guy, and then a low end depth player. So that's how I approached it. Unfortunately, my first pick and my first preference for a higher end player, I don't know if it's going to come to fruition given what just transpired today in Kansas City with the trade of Trent McDuffie to the Rams. I don't know if that now opens the door for Kansas City to possibly extend Jalen Watson on a long-term deal. But that being said, he is my primary target and someone that I would really like Washington to sign. He's a 4-year veteran. He was a 7th rounder, and this is a guy that's made the absolute most of every opportunity that he's been given in the NFL on a really top-notch team in Kansas City over the years. There's something to be said as a 7th rounder walking into an environment like Kansas City, given the track record that they've had over the years, and be a standout and solid player for that franchise. So he played a really key role in Kansas City in winning back-to-back Super Bowls. He easily had his best season of his career this past year. He had 15 starts. He played in 96% of their snaps. He had a couple interceptions. He only gave up a passer rating of 69 when he was targeted in coverage last year, and he didn't give up a single touchdown on targets as well last year. Over and above that, I love when corners can get their nose dirty in the run game, and he ranked out as the 6th best run defender as a cornerback. He plays in a really, really aggressive defense with Kansas City. And by the sounds of it sounds like Durante Jones wants to bring that aggressive style to Washington. So I think he can be a natural good fit in that regard. He's got the length that Adam Peters looks for in corners. He's 6'2". He's really physical on the outside. He's got 2 career sacks. So Kansas City used him in a lot of different ways. They would disguise how they would use him. They would sometimes get him after the quarterback. And I think from in that regard, he can be a pretty versatile and interesting player that we add to the mix here. I love the fact that he's only 27 years old. He's still got some long-term upside. He's still got some ability to get better as a player. And over and above that, he brings the championship pedigree. He could bring a championship pedigree to Washington, who's a team that obviously doesn't have a lot of championship type players, right? Especially if Ertz and Wagner leave the fold, which might very well happen. So overall, why do I like him? Again, he's a physical starter. He's reliable in coverage. He doesn't give up a lot of big plays. And I think that's pretty important when you're playing against some of the receivers in our division, like CeeDee Lamb, Malik Neighbors, etc. Right?
Mm-hmm.
We're playing those guys 6 times a year. So we have to be able to cover on the outside. And the fact is, we've been an absolute tire fire in terms of giving up big plays in our secondary. And it would be really nice to have someone who can come in and settle things down. So I don't know. Overall, I think he's a player that wants to exit the shadows of Trent McDuffie and prove that he can be a number 1 corner. And that would be something that I would take a chance on, especially given the fact that, he's basically come out of nowhere as a 7th rounder and earned every opportunity in the NFL. So good on him for that. And I would love a player of that caliber here in Washington. The second player I'm going to talk about is, if we do a little rewind and we go back to this episode from last year, I had cornerbacks as well. And I talked about bringing Eric Stokes in on a flyer deal as a depth signing last year. It turns out that he ended up being the 18th best cornerback, according to those PFF rankings in the NFL this year. So he signed a 1-year flyer with the Raiders this past year and put together an absolutely awesome year. Eric Stokes is a former 1st-round pick for Green Bay. He had a standout rookie year with the Packers. Then he got derailed by injuries, and I was kind of vouching to bring him in last year as a depth signing. And now he stands to be someone who's probably going to earn a pretty decent contract. And same thing as Jalen Watson. He's the type of player that has some room to ascend, right? He's not an aging vet. He's entering the prime years of his career, and still has some room to grow. Just a couple notes about his season last year. He was only targeted 60 times and only gave up 34 completions. Quarterbacks only had a rating of 77 when they threw his way. As I mentioned earlier, he ranked 18th out of 124 corners in the league. He had 5 pass breakups. So he's not an interception machine. He's not, someone who's going to, be that difference maker in the turnover department. But when his health is in order, as he proved in his rookie year with the Packers, and as he proved last year with the Raiders, he has shown that he's more than capable of shutting down one side of the field and doing a really, really great job in terms of shadowing wide receivers. So I really love what he did in his rookie year and what he did last year with Vegas. I think he can come in and be a consistent contributor and someone that can elevate the overall play and level of our defensive secondary. So I don't think you're going to break the bank with signing someone like Eric Stokes for, let's say, the next 3 years. But again, you're getting an athletic corner. You're getting someone who can be sticky on the outside, and we can desperately use that. I love his resiliency. He's bounced back from a lot of adversity. He had like 2 or 3 really tough years in Green Bay after that great rookie season, and he reshaped himself into a really reliable corner again last year for Vegas. I think that matters and counts for something. The last guy I'm going to talk about, since we're in the business of vouching for bringing back ex-Redskins, I'm going to talk about Fabian Moreau, who was ex of the Vikings the past couple years. The only reason why I'm talking about him is not because I think he can be a long-term solution. He's going to be 31 years old, I believe. But he's got some experience with playing in Durante Jones's system. And, you need those depth signings and you need those guys who can come in and maybe fill a low-end roster spot. He was pressed into some duty last year with the Vikings and actually performed fairly well when asked to step in for a lot of injury concerns that they had. I think he's ultimately like your classic 1-year deal addition to bring some veteran presence to our young secondary and to help Durante Jones in installing his scheme. That's what I got for corner.
I guess one question I have, Paul, is if they do, let's say that they swing big for a corner in free agency and they bring in a guy who's, going to start, who you think they're going to move? You think they would move Stan Rissel back to, the nickel spot where he's supposed to be? That's supposed to be his natural position, but it hasn't gone well. He's actually, as you guys know, he's done better on the outside. Or would he just become like part of the rotation at that point?
I would like to think that with proper coaching and, with a different voice in that secondary room and a different voice, a defensive coordinator, that they can get the most out of him to play the position that he was brought in here to fill. So I guess when I, decided on the types of players that I would bring in at cornerback, I kind of envisioned the scenario where Sainer still does go back to play the corner spot, which I think was ultimately what they intended for him to do when he was originally drafted here.
Yeah, the one thing that's kind of crazy that in today's NFL is the size of these wide receivers now. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the defensive backs haven't adjusted, in the same way. There's still a lot of like 5'9", 6 foot, 5'11" cornerbacks out there. And you see it sometimes where guys, they just can't cover these guys.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And the rules are designed to benefit the wide receivers nowadays too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right, brother Bob, I'll let you hit linebackers and then I'll finish it off with mine. What you got, brother?
So I can't talk about linebackers without first tipping my imaginary cap to brother Mark in Germany somewhere. For years, Mark came on this very pod for years and beat the drum for linebackers. I'm also gonna let the cat out of the bag and tell you that I will be the first guy tonight that does not beat the drum for bringing back a former Commander or Redskin, because there aren't any former Commander or Redskin linebackers out there. We just haven't had any. So, there just
They should
aren't
get
any to bring back.
Ryan Kerrigan back and have him suit up. Probably
I guess, but we've this has been the most, I don't know, overlooked position, underrepresented position on this team for years. And I think we have to start with the elephant in the room. I'd like to thank Bobby Wagner for 2 years of service. I think the dude has been incredible in burgundy and gold. And I truly appreciate the fact that he came all the way across the country to play for us and to provide that sense of leadership in the locker room and show some of these young guys exactly how to be, quite frankly, a model pro football player, as well as citizen, right? I mean, he's just been a truly stand-up guy on the field and off. But I don't ever want to see him covering a back over the middle on third down again. I just don't ever want to see it. So I'm not. Now, having said that, Durante's got a completely different look on how he wants to play this. And if in his head he can bring Bobby Wagner back and never leave the guy matched up one-on-one in man coverage with a running back in the secondary again, and find a way to use that football brain of his, I'm totally on board with re-signing Wagner again. But if we're going to play this straight up where linebackers are going to have to cover, I don't want to see it. So I went with guys that were younger for the most part. First, it's probably worth talking just a little bit. We currently have 6 linebackers under contract on the team. My guess is everybody on this call can name 3 of those 6: Frankie Luvu, Jordan McGee, and Kane Medrano. But unless you're looking at the roster, I defy any of you to name even one of the other 3. Yeah, that's what I thought. Derek's, I can smell the smoke from here, Derek. Yeah, you've got till I finish to come up with one without looking at a roster. I'll consider you, we'll use the honor system here. But so I started looking around, and ESPN had a great list out there where they ranked position guys that are available at each position on defense by tier 1 franchise player, tier 2 Pro Bowl caliber players, tier 3 capable starters, and then tier 4 borderline starters, high-end backups, and then backups likely to earn a roster spot, where I think you're probably talking about guys that fit the 3 names you can't come up with at the moment. There are no franchise linebackers available in this offseason. There just isn't anybody out there. And it kind of makes sense. If you've got a franchise guy you're re-signing, the only Pro Bowl caliber out there is the first guy I'm going to talk about, and that's Devin Lloyd. The very first year I took this job from Mark was 4 years ago, and Devin Lloyd was a first-round draft pick in the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I beat the drum for us to go get Devin Lloyd because I thought we needed a linebacker. And he played really well. He had a fantastic rookie season. He had an even better second season. And then he completely fell off the map in 2024, so much so that Jacksonville did not exercise the 5th-year option that they had on a first-round draft pick. So this guy's a first-round draft pick available after 4 years, but he played at a Pro Bowl level this last year. He had 5 interceptions from that middle linebacker spot for Jacksonville. One of those he took to the house for a touchdown, 99 yards. So Holmes can run too. Oddly enough, he's the oldest guy on this list. That was one of the knocks when he came out of college, was he was a little older, kind of like Jaden Daniels. People were knocking on the fact that he was 23. So he's been in the league 4 years, and he's already past his 27th birthday. He's the oldest guy I'm going to talk about. But man, the guy had a fantastic 2025. I'm getting Duran Payne contract year vibes out of the fact that he turned in a monster year in 2025 after sleepwalking through 2024. Although several of the reviews that I read said the entire Jacksonville team sleptwalked through the 2024 season, so it was tough to hold that against him. You know, this last year he had what did he do? 81 tackles, 35 of those were solo, and 46 were assisted tackles. But he played a lot off the ball and in coverage. He had 6 tackles for loss. Again, he had those 5 interceptions for 135 and 1 touchdown. He's 7 passes defensed, which is probably more than all of our linebacking core combined. Maybe more than our linebacking core and safeties combined. I don't know. The one thing I would like to see is better is more in terms of forced fumbles out of a linebacker like that. But the guy's kind of all over the place, and he would fit right into the middle. I'm not sure what that means for Jordan McGee, to be honest with you. I think McGee gets on the field this year no matter what we do. I just don't know exactly where. But yeah, so Lloyd is the first guy. The second guy I'm going to talk about fits into that third tier of capable starters. Maybe guys with some upside that could jump up into tier 2 given time. And that's Quay Walker. He's been in Green Bay the last 4 years. I think he's a guy I talked about 4 years ago too. He came out of Georgia. Big kid, 6. Where did I put his number? 6'4", 241, right? So he brings some size to the position. He is not the pass defender that Devin Lloyd is. He's probably going to play closer to the line of scrimmage, and he's probably going to work the run game and maybe blitz a bit more. He really doesn't have pass defense numbers. Sadly, I'm not on it as far as Paul is, so I can't tell you how bad he was or good he was in pass defense. But what I can tell you is he's got no interceptions, and he's got 5 pass defense, 5 PDs credited for last year, 2.5 sacks, 128 total tackles. So this is a guy that would potentially fill that void left by Wagner not coming back, right? I mean, 128 total tackles is a pretty solid season. 8 for a loss, 7 quarterback hits. But I love the size on this guy. If we're against tight ends more than likely, and we struggle against tight ends, so I'd love to see somebody that could actually play a tight end fairly well from the linebacking position and not require us to dedicate a safety to it. And then guy 4 is gonna raise some eyebrows. Nakobe Dean. I love the idea of stealing from somebody else in the division, weakening the Eagles while strengthening us. I think from everything we know about what Durante's planning on doing on defense, or what we think he's planning on doing on defense, that guys are going to kind of get after the quarterback from all over the field. Dean has one of the best blitzing linebackers in the league for the last couple of years, and putting this guy in the defense makes the other team's quarterback wonder who's coming, whether it's going to be Dean, whether it's going to be Luvu, maybe whether it's going to be a cornerback or a safety from some weird position. But right now, you pretty much know it's going to be Frankie Luvu if somebody's coming from that second layer. And if we bring in a guy like Dean, maybe he becomes that blitz package guy for Durante that gets to the quarterback fairly well. Last year, he had 4 sacks. He had 55 combined tackles, 7 tackles for a loss, 6 quarterback hits. He had 1 pass defense, but he had 2 forced fumbles. Now, my big issue with Dean, all the other guys have been pretty healthy. They played almost completely full seasons their entire careers. Dean has not, right? 3 years ago, he only played 5 games. This last year, he only played 10 games. In fact, his only season in the NFL that he played a full 17-game season was 2022, his rookie year. He has missed games every year since then, at least 2. So that's a little bit of a concern. But again, fairly young guy, only 25, so he could be around for a little while. But that's what I'm thinking as far as linebacker is concerned.
That's another one of those groups that I think we have an opportunity to seriously change the dynamic. We struggled in run defense last year, and you wonder if, you know, I also don't think I shouldn't say I don't think I lost faith in Witt. So I look at all of these position groups and I start to ask myself, were we that bad, or was the defensive scheme that bad? You know what I mean? So I don't know. Any feelings from you boys about the linebackers, or should I go ahead and jump right into edge?
That's fair, Derek.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like safety. There's not a lot
John
on the shelf.
looks like he's got something to say.
It's not a lot on the shelf in terms of who we have right now. And I mean, we talked for years, like how could, we were talking about when Ron Rivera was here, like how can we not, how can we not value the linebacker position, when we have a former linebacker as a head coach? So anyway, I just, I think we could upgrade the position, but I don't have any opinions about how we do that. And I think it's really hard to know, are we going to play guys at a true linebacker position, or are we going to have these hybrid roles where, guys are kind of all over the place? So I don't know that. I think it's really hard to know. Durante Jones hopefully knows, but I don't think we can know, like, how many safeties are we going to have on the team? How many linebackers are we going to use in the game, and what that's going to look like? I think it's really hard to know.
All right, well, I'm going to jump into edge, and I hope you guys can hear me okay. I hope my internet's not too choppy. It's going to sound terrible. There's a couple big names out there that I'm not going to dig too deep into. Trey Hendrickson being the first one. This time last year, fans wanted us to give up multiple first-round picks and a ground-breaking contract for that guy. Obviously, I think we're all thankful that didn't happen. But he's now apparently going to hit the market. I won't get too, like I said, I don't know that I'm going to really hold my breath on us signing him. I don't know if I want to. He's north of 30. Looks like he's on the downside of his career, or at least if you look at his season last year, he was injured. Report came out recently that Max Crosby could be on the trade market. Apparently, the Raiders want 2 first-round picks and a player, and I'll give you none of that. I don't think anybody would be happy with that decision if we were to pull that trigger. So the guys, unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but the guys I'm going to talk about are not going to be premier top line pass rushers, because I don't think those guys are realistically available to us in free agency. The first one I'm going to talk about is Odafe Owe. He was originally drafted by the Ravens in the first round back in the 2021 draft. What's intriguing about him, and back in 24, he did have 10 sacks and with 23 QB hits. But then last year he kind of struggled in the beginning of the season. Then he got traded to the Chargers, where after he got traded in 12 games, he had 7.5 sacks and 18 QB hits. So 7.5 sacks would be tied for the lead of our sack group, and this guy did it in 2/3 of a season. I think there's some talent there. He's got some juice. I think he's kind of an athletic freak. 6'5", 251 pounds. He's listed as an as an outside linebacker, but I believe he is perfectly capable of putting his hand down, obviously. PFF writes that he recorded 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and in the Chargers playoff loss to the Patriots. And after going to LA, he actually ranked 11th in edge defenders overall with a pass rush win rate. So, a top 15 as far as PFF goes win rate. That's not something we have on this team right now. Another guy I'm going to talk about is Joseph Asai out of Cincinnati. Last year was not super crazy. He only had 5 sacks, but he had 43 tackles and 12 QB hits. One of the things that I think he brings to the table that's a little bit different is that he's actually viewed as being more of a capable run defender. At least that's what I've seen. He grades out on PFF a little more mid. He's like in the 60s, which isn't great. But again, I don't think we're going to be signing a guy. I don't think there's a guy to sign that's going to come in and dynamically change, as our premium edge defender that's going to be an all pro. Those guys just don't leave their team. They're not available. So it's going to be, in my opinion, a committee unless we take one at 7, or they're planning on taking one at 7. They better hope he's there, because if you don't get some of these guys and then the guy's not there at 7, then we're going into this season struggling. So again, the last name I'm going to talk about real quick, as far as guys walking the street, is Kwity Paye. This is another guy. He had 4 sacks, but in the previous seasons, he's had 8 and 8.5. Both of those seasons, he would have led our team in sacks. The other thing that he is out of the same book with Asai, but he's more well known as a run defender. He actually is ranked in last year. He ranked 10th as far as run defending edge rushers, and I don't think I've explained to the 3 of you guys how important it is for us to stop the run this season, because
we were saying that same thing last year, Derek. Well, I swear to God, we talked about stopping the run all off.
Oh, I know. Well, we have a new defensive coordinator, so maybe this time we can do it. I hate to say it that way, but he was another high draft pick. Played his entire career in Indianapolis in 5 seasons. Played in 16 games last year, 15 games the year before, 16 games the year before, 12 the year before that, 15 before that. So availability is one of the things that he is valuable at. So as I finish up with the free agents, we're winding down here a little bit. The last name I'm going to put out there, and this would be the big move of the offseason if we're going to make it, would be Jonathan Greenard out of Minnesota. Minnesota has made it known he's available. We now have the former defensive backs coach that was in Minnesota as our defensive coordinator. So I could see a situation where he's going to Adam Peters and Dan Quinn and saying, I don't need a lot this offseason, but I need that. I'm not going to sit here and put odds on what we would give up for Jonathan Greenard. Apparently Minnesota just came out about a couple hours ago stating that they're going to release John Allen. They are blowing up their entire defense right now because they're like $55 million over the cap. So they're trying to figure out every possible way that they can cut money. I don't know that Greenard's actually going to hit the free agent market. Maybe Jones knows somebody in that building that can give him a little, wink, wink, nod, letter under the hotel door to say, this guy's just hold out. This guy's going to become available. What it would take to get him, I'm not looking to give up a 1st-round pick or anything. But if they really want to make a swing at edge, or at least an edge rusher, a premium edge rusher, I think they would look more toward Greenard than they would someone like Crosby or Hendrickson or something like that. Other notable names that are going to be available: Von Miller is technically not under contract anymore. I could see us bringing him back as a rotation. He did kind of end the season as our leading sack getter. As crazy as that sounds, he led the team in sacks. He was tied with Dorrance Armstrong. And Khalil Mack's going to be out there. He's probably going to warrant big money. But I unfortunately hate to be the bearer of bad news. I don't think free agency is where we're going to get a difference maker at edge. I just don't think that guy's on the market this offseason. I don't think they come to the market during the offseason very often. It's kind of like left tackle. If you want to make a move, you need to make a trade. Tunsil was never going to hit free agency. You had to trade for that guy. If we're going to do it, I think that more than likely we go into this season again with a rotational piece unless somebody falls to us at 7 and we add a couple of guys and, we don't have a guy that gets 10 sacks, but we have 4 guys that get 7. And that's just kind of the way our season goes.
Yeah, I'm a little worried that I know we're not talking about the draft, but I'm a little worried that we're so desperate for an edge rusher that we're just going to pick whoever's left at 7.
And I hope that doesn't happen, man.
I really don't want that because I think there's so many really talented guys that somebody's got to fall to us at 7. I mean, anyway, that's just my only concern.
Honestly, John, that is my fear is that if the fans were making the pick, that would be my fear. I don't think Peters and company are going to panic into a pick. They're going to take the best guy they think is available. But if their fans were, they would say, pick the best edge defender and move on. And that just scares me. Why are you shaking your head, Bob?
Well, I mean, I'm with you, and it's no secret. I've said probably since November that I wanted, if we were going to pick high, I wanted an edge guy, but I don't want an edge guy so bad that we pick outside those 7, 8, 9 players that are deemed definitive first round talent this year, right? And so I mean that pretty much limits us to Reese, Baines, and Bailey as far as edge guys are concerned. And if those guys go 2, 3, 4, the way I've been seeing the last couple of days, especially with some of the moves that have been made, the big move that impacts all of this is apparently the trade between Tennessee and the Jets, where the Jets sent one of their edge guys, and I forget, Jerome something, I don't know, to Tennessee, and Tennessee sent a defensive tackle to New York. People seem to think that's a definitive harbinger that New York is looking at Bailey or Reese. Bain seems to be the odd guy out of the 3 of them, and he'll go third. Whoever goes, second and third, Bain will go fourth. Is kind of what it's looking like at the moment. Largely because apparently he's got short arms. But
he's like Denise on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
somebody needs to do an AI video of that,
Every time somebody says short arms, I get this image of him doing I see Bane with Tyrannosaurus Rex arms, which is not fair at all. Because the guy was beating NFL quality tackle talent this entire last season at Miami. So I'm not terribly worried about it. However, at this point, I just don't see one of those 3 guys coming to us, which means we're looking at, Styles or Downs or a wide receiver.
Well,
I guess.
Styles isn't even an edge guy. Styles, I guess you mean available. Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm saying. We're out of the edge business if all 3 of those guys are gone, because I don't want to reach for a guy that should be drafted 15th or 16th at number 7.
I think what Derek said is probably right. Is there's not a guy that we can afford that's a no-brainer, knock it out of the park pass rusher in free agency, that we wouldn't have to give up picks for, in the actual trade form or something.
Right.
So I suspect that it's going to be more of a committee thing, just because, I just don't know how they get around that, because you can't be guaranteed you're going to get somebody that you want in the draft.
Well, and I think I don't even know that it's that we can't afford. Like, we could probably afford Hendrickson. I just don't know that I want to invest in that guy. Like, he's a very valuable player up until last year, and then he missed half the season, and now he's north of 30. Yeah. Either we're going to avoid that situation or we're not. You know what I mean? Obviously, it's a player by player basis.
And you can't
But-
keep getting up in front of the microphones in DC saying we got to get younger and faster and younger and faster,
And then
keep
sign a
and keep
32-year-old
signing slower and
yeah.
older players.
Well-
So I think Peters has heard a lot about that. This
The thing that gets me about Hendrickson, and it got me last year too, is Hendrickson is great for 10, 12, 15 sacks a year. He is not a game wrecker like a Myles Garrett, but he's going to want 30, 35 million a season. That's going to be the going rate for him this year. And I don't want to pay that kind of money for a guy that can't bring near Myles Garrett kind of, I'm looking for Garrett. I'm looking for Chris Jones. I'm looking for Jalen Carter. I'm looking for somebody that brings that
prime Khalil Mack, the guy that
Right.
just like changes the offensive game plan. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And if I'm going to spend 30 or 35 million on that guy, that's what I want. And I don't see Trey Hendrickson as that kind of guy. Aiden Hutchinson, if we were talking about Hutchinson, I'd be all over that. But no,
the other thing is fans that we don't want to hear is,
Well,
I mean, I don't want to hear it, and I know nobody else wants to hear it, but we can't fix everything in one. I mean, we've had a couple of years. I think we all agree we kind of stuttered, we kind of stumbled a little last off season because we got seduced in the NFC Championship game, with that performance in 2024, and we kind of maybe stopped the plan and changed course in 2025, which didn't work out so well. But I just think I think we almost need to start over, and we need to not trade away picks. We need to go young, and we're not going to be able to fill every need. Even if it's the most pressing need we have, we're not going to be able to fill it all in this offseason, especially when we've given away a third of our draft picks before we even start. So I'm not saying it wasn't worth it.
Sorry, go ahead and finish, John.
No, well, that just brings up my, my next point, which is Reese. We still have we need to re-sign Laramie Tunsil, one of the guys that we gave up all those picks for. So,
and I honestly think if I'm talking to just about edge, I don't think that guy's even available in the draft. If we're talking about, to your point, Bob, the guy there isn't a Myles Garrett in this draft. Right, there isn't even Aiden Hutchinson available in the top 10 of this draft. Even if you could make some arguments with maybe a guy like Bailey, but I don't. We're talking about maybe needing a reset, like John said, and it comes back to, all right, well, if we can, I don't want to take the next best edge defender. If we can get Sonny Styles and have our green dot for the next 5 seasons, right?
Right.
That's I mean, now you're changing the dynamic of the entire defense. And dare I say, Jeremiah Love, who I know that's been battled about on the board, but if you take Saquon Barkley and you put him on this offense last year, how much different is this team? And if you there's a lot there, and I really don't want to reach. And if it means that we take a step back at edge, back into where we don't want to be, because you either have it or you don't. And I think, Bob, when that poll was up, you and I both picked edge defender as the top priority. Mm-hmm. It is, but it's only the top priority if the right piece of the puzzle is available at the right time.
Correct.
Those priority positions are, like quarterback, left tackle, and edge rusher. Those are the positions where the massive mistakes get made because, guys
right.
get in the draft and they're picking for the importance of the position, not paying enough attention to the actual player that they're grabbing. So it just makes me nervous.
Yeah, no, I don't. I'm not so desperate for an edge that I'll take anything at 7. I would prefer that they, if the edge guys are gone, let's go get Downs. Let's go get Tate if they think, there's nobody left on the defensive side of the ball that's big a difference maker. Let's go get Tate and stretch the field, right? But
we have let's see, I'm looking at our countdown clock. There are 6 days, 17 hours, 26 minutes, and 0 seconds left before free agency. So we're
That's
almost there.
that's before it officially opens, right? Legal tampering actually opens on Monday.
Mm-hmm. Legal tampering.
Legal tampering. That's what they
Only
call
a
it.
lawyer could come up with that.
Probably. Legal tampering. What's up, brother Paul? What are you thinking? How are you feeling about this free agent class as a whole? Like, what's going through your mind?
I don't think it's standout by any means. We've run through all these position groups last week and this week on both sides of the ball, and I don't know. I just don't see there being a huge crop of must-have players. Like, we need to go get that guy by all means, right? Like, there are a lot of players that are certainly appealing, but I don't know if there are enough franchise changers, so to speak.
I thought I don't know if you guys feel this way, but I kind of feel not that I feel the opposite of what you just said, Bob, because I hear what you're saying, but you know the whole adage about how free agency, like teams don't let really good players who are young, they get them on their second contract. They don't let them get to free agency, but there's a ton of players like Pierce. Pierce, I swore last week that he would be franchised, and he is not franchised. He's going to be available. So that just blows my mind. And that those kind of things haven't really happened over the last 3 or 4 NFL free agency periods. I don't know if it's that the cap's getting harder to manage, or I don't know what's driving that, but I think there's a lot more players that are going into their second contract that are really good players that teams are not locking up.
I think you just said it, though. They're really good. There's not. Look, Alec Pierce, we talked about Alec Pierce when he was coming out of Stanford on this podcast as a potential third-round pick. But he's never going to be your number one receiver. Like, he's never going to be a top 30 receiver. So if the best free agent wide receiver isn't even in competition to be your starting
Kenneth Walker,
one,
I'll give you one that he's pretty damn good.
Now, you're not wrong. I think running back is different because Breece Hall was scheduled to hit, and I think he's off the board. But Kenneth Walker is good. I think Rico Dowdle is underappreciated on that. All he did was revive the Dallas running game, go to Carolina, and then make Chuba Hubbard look like one of us. Like, so I get it, but there's a lot of. But if you look at across the board as a free agent, it's almost top heavy, right? Like, I don't know. I just don't see premium.
Well, I hope they
Mack
spend every cent, man.
Like,
that's my thing. Is I don't want there to be $1.50 left in the bank when we're done with free agency. Spend the money.
You know, free agency. I don't know. Free agency to me has kind of become that place where guys that have a year left might have 3 years left. Nobody really knows, but they still want serious money. Are hanging out. I honestly, I'm a little stunned that I could talk about Devin Lloyd tonight. You guys realize that as far as PFF was concerned, he was the number 3 rated linebacker in the league last year. Inside, outside, didn't matter. He was number 3 in the league last year, and here he is on the free agent market. That's as close to a superstar as I guess I've seen in this year's free agent class. You're right. I mean, Alec Pierce is a great player, but Alec Pierce is not a top 30 wide receiver in this league. I'm not sure he's a number 1 ever, right? If he joined us, he'd still be the number 2 receiver behind McLaurin. I don't know. I feel like go ahead.
The way I put it on the board, Bob, is there's 2 reasons guys become free agents. One, because they're not good enough anymore for their team to pay them what they're paying them, or 2, because they've outlived the contract where the team doesn't want to pay them anymore. right? Like either they're too expensive or they're not as good as they think they're not as good as the money that they want.
I would say there's a third reason, and that third reason is the team has gotten themselves into some type of financial situation.
Well, then that comes back to the fact that the team is not willing to pay them what they were paying them. Like, so it doesn't mean that players not worth it. What it means is the
Right.
team that had them doesn't deem them valuable enough to pay them what they want.
Yeah, fair enough.
Well,
So there
boys,
we go.
we are like 5 days away from the legal tampering period. We are a week away from the new league year when all of this thing comes to be official. I'm sure we'll probably see I would assume we'll probably see a couple more minor contract extensions. I would love to see a Laramie Tunsil contract extension over the next 4 days. Somebody brought up a good point on the board that Tunsil probably is not willing to negotiate anything until we hit free agency so that can set the benchmark of what his contract is going to look like. At least if his agent was smart, that would, because now that the cap has gone up to $300+ million, like a lot of things are going to change, negotiating power. So I wouldn't expect it. I'm not holding my breath, but it would be great. But I think we will see a couple more signings. I think we'll see a couple more guys brought back before we hit this, but it's going to be a wild couple weeks.
We need a kicker now too. It looks
yeah,
like.
Brandon Aubrey. What's it going to take, brother?
Oh my gosh!
I don't know if I can give up a second-round pick for him, but man, if we could get our hands on that guy,
we would wreck him.
Yeah, probably.
I just like to have a second-round pick. Forget about Brandon Aubrey.
We just don't let him. We just don't let him kick at home. He only kicks at away games. So
Nice.
Well, fellas, as always, it's been a pleasure mixing it up. If you made it this far, cheers to you. Hook us up with a like, a share, and a follow. You know all of the 2026 lingo for social media. Catch us on all major social media and audio platforms. And, of course, come join the bgobsession.com. And the pigs are out.